6 o'clock. I guess we'll need to turn. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, I should talk into the microphone. It is 6 o'clock, time for the May 14th meeting of the Sherwood Planning Commission. Call the roll.
Jones?
Aye.
Hoskin?
I'm sorry. Here.
Patel?
Here.
Clough? Middleton?
Here.
Martin?
Here.
Abernathy?
Okay, you've received a copy of last month's minutes. Are there any corrections or additions?
I had none, so motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Jones?
Aye.
Hoskin?
Aye.
Patel?
Aye.
Middleton?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
I want to take a second to say how thorough and accurate those minutes were. Good job.
Thank you.
Are there any changes or adjustments to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is set.
Amendment to the Sherwood zoning code regarding chapter 14-1002 fence requirements.
So this first item before you this evening is just a simple amendment that staff is proposing to section 14-1002 of the fence requirements. And that's simply going into where, essentially, as it stands right now, that the city engineer may allow a deviation to encroach into the setback or the height requirements on a case-by-case basis. And staff is recommending, in the absence of an actual city engineer, that we amend that to reflect an enforcement officer so we have efficiency in-house with permit approval.
Okay, this calls for a public hearing. Does anybody wish to speak to this agenda item? Hearing none, public hearing is closed. I guess my only observation is there are probably multiple places in the code that could be changed for the same reason, and this makes sense.
Thank you. And there is a definition that accurately describes what an enforcement officer is defined to be. And so that is also the direction that we're headed when it comes to the conditional use and the zoning amendment language as well.
It seems to me that placing the responsibility on that kind of generic position, basically it's an administrative function where the mayor can decide which person in the organization should be handling which issues. So that makes sense to me.
Okay.
Okay, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Jones?
Aye.
Hoskin?
Aye.
Patel?
Aye.
Middleton?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Waiver for 6433 Wild Rose Loop.
So this application essentially tails up our previous discussion. So with that, the applicant has requested, as you see on this plot plan, the red line here is where they're proposing to put the fence, which is encroaching over the building line. And on a corner lot, that is not permitted by right without approval of the planning commission or the city engineer to do so. With that, our consultant did not feel comfortable approving this, although there were no site distance issues that he had determined. So he wanted to bring it before the planning commission, basically for a quality of place. So with that, where it sits, staff went out to measure this property. Where the structure is situated on the lot to the building line is roughly 13 feet, give or take. So the applicant is essentially requesting encroachment into that setback to the easement of 15 feet. And then the applicant also provided these photos because Pages is not yet updated since this is a relatively new structure. So it's seeming like it'll come out over to this area. And the owner is here to answer any specifics. So with that, staff is requesting the planning commission review the facts and make a determination.
Does the applicant want to speak to us?
Hello, everyone.
Your name and address again, just for
Yes.
the record.
It's Damone Dickerson, and I'm the owner of the house. Well, me and my wife are. First, I would want to thank Ms. Corey and Ms. Shelby for putting up with my crazy emails and talking back and forth. They were super professional in that. But yeah, so what we're trying to do, as you see on the image, the majority of our yard is on the east side of the house. I mean, and so we were wanting to enclose more and I guess have more functions in our backyard, quote unquote, and also to provide security. So the fence, so we're asking for the fence to be in that area. With the issues right now, I could barely get anything in there. Specifically, we asked for our lawn to be cut, and our current lawn guy was having issues getting his, what do you call it, the lawnmower, the riding mower down through there, based on the qualifications and everything that we had. But we were trying to, guess, enclose everything, make everything secure, and yeah, and we're first-time homeowners, and we just want just a fence. That's basically a fence in our area.
Yes, I have a question of either you or staff. Does that fence on the right side there, the east side, is that going all the way to the sidewalk or part way?
So it's going to come up to the easement line. I'm going to scroll back up. So here's the center line of the road. So within the utility easement is what it's projected. It's difficult on here, and on the ground, we really don't have.
So it's coming 28 feet out from the house?
28 feet from the, yes, from the side, the east side of the house.
I have a question for Mr. Cobb on this. When I look at the, oh, I'm sorry. Pushed up, there we go. On the ordinance that allows us to, that has been presented to us, which was the ordinance we just voted on, we just changed from city engineer to code enforcement officer. It doesn't make any statement in there that the planning commission can grant a waiver. Do we have the authority just by the mere fact that we're the planning commission to make a waiver decision in this situation?
I think Shelby can answer that.
So I have it up on the screen right now. 141002C, the request for waivers. If use requirements suggest a need for an exception to the requirements in Section B, which is in all of this section, where it also grants the authority for the city engineer where they may approve, not shall. In Section B above, the applicant may request a determination by the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission will base its decision on unique characteristics of the use and property or security needs. However, in no case can a site distance issue requirements be waived. And looking back on past records, when this was updated in 2020, it was intentionally done that way to allow an option.
Well, but what I'm getting at is that it says that if a waiver is needed for the exception or for the requirements for Section B above, okay? What he's asking for, or what the homeowner's asking for in this situation is not part of Section B above.
So what the homeowner is asking for is encroachment into the setback, which is encompassed in that section. And that's also the provision that allows the city engineer, basically at their authority, if they wish, to be able to approve that in-house. It's before you this evening because the consultant was not comfortable doing so.
Got that. So, Mr. Cobb, do we have the authority to do this?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Shelby.
Thank you, Shelby.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Is there, if we can go back to the image,
Yes.
please.
Are you wanting this one or the actual?
No, the photographs. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
okay. No, you're okay.
It looks like there's some kind of an existing fence on the west side.
Is there like chain fence?
Yeah, I don't know what that is. Is that
So-
on the property line? Do you know where that is?
So those are
Shelby?
posts that are already set. What's happened
Oh,
here
okay.
is there was application made.
Gotcha.
How this was originally marketed to the owner is that they had additional side yard to fence in because it was a corner lot, and that was not the case. So when the application was made by the company constructing the fence, it was all put on pause at that point.
Gotcha.
So this has been a month and a half, I would say at best, maybe even longer in the making to get to this point tonight.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you.
Some additional context. I have not reviewed this particular application other than being in the packet itself right now. But when you look at this, particularly from the photos, you can tell that there is, even from a standpoint of it backs up to an adjacent structure there, so it would be adjacent to the front yard of a neighboring property. But that neighboring property, the house is already set back well beyond the setback. It's essentially even with the side of this house, so even if it extended out to the setback line, it would still be out in front of that house. And so I think, having a 10-foot setback from the sidewalk itself, might not be that bad of a thing in this situation, but it's, it just happens to be a very limiting circumstance for this individual property owner in this particular location. It's a result of the way that this was platted.
And the other thing too, is that I drove by your house the other day and looked, your yard slopes off away from your house too. You can't really see that in this picture.
No,
But
sure.
his house is higher than the street level, so it kind of goes out like this, so.
So is your neighbor to the back, to the rear of your property, know you're building a fence? I mean, if this commission votes in favor of this tonight and you go build it, is Shelby gonna get a phone call of like, what happened? How did this happen? Because I'm gonna tell you, this issue is near and dear to me because I'm the person with the driveway behind you with the fence beside mine, okay? So you're gonna have to convince me pretty hard to say yes, because I walked in here with a no in my head. I'm gonna tell you real quick, okay? And I'll tell you where my house is if you wanna go see how bad it is for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay. Well, I mean, I've spoken to my neighbor.
Yeah.
And we've already kind of talked about, hey, that there's gonna be a fence, and he's having a hard issue of seeing, like, where it would block his view,
Yeah.
getting out.
Yeah.
So, like I said, he's all for us getting a fence. I think the issue is just like, if it's gonna, I guess, I don't know, just kind of block his view from going out of his driveway.
Yeah.
I guess that's his biggest issue.
the only difference between my situation and your neighbor's there is my driveway's adjacent to that fence and his is on the far side
on
of
the
his,
far side, okay.
far side of his lot. So, I mean, that's the only thing that makes this a little bit better to me.
Right.
Like I say, because I live this every day.
Does anybody have any questions of
I have about 300 questions for him, but I actually have one other question about the posts, so. So the posts are coming down closer to the corner of the garage than what's shown on the diagram with the red markings?
And actually, those posts are my neighbor's fence.
Okay.
That's not our,
So yours is gonna start back here at the back of your home?
I was gonna start at the back of our home,
Okay,
correct?
okay.
Yeah.
So I have a question, like what Charles has said, that your slope
Mm-hmm.
down on that side. Now, your fence is gonna be coming all the way up to the slope, or it's just gonna be up on the top?
It's gonna, what we plan on, did you have that other picture?
It's gonna be on your property.
Yeah, it's gonna be on the property line, but the back of my yard, it does slope down this way and it does slope down that way. So, like, the fence essentially is gonna slope down, but like I said, I can't make any promises about my neighbor not having an issue. I can't
Yeah,
do that.
I understand.
Right.
No, I understand.
But like I said, the fence is going to slope down, so
Like I
that
said,
answers your question. I'm sorry, I don't know if that did or not.
So you will go all the way up to the utility easement, right?
Yes.
That's what you're requesting? And it will slope,
It will slope.
the fence will, right?
So this is going all the way to the property line, and is that where the sidewalk is?
So the sidewalk, it abuts where the property line is proposed based on staff measurements. And then from the property line, there's an additional 10 feet that's an easement. So property line in to 25 feet, that's where the building line begins. So the encroachment of what they were requesting, it's going to end on the easement line, but it's 15 feet over the building line. And I think what the confusion is that the fence is a 6-foot privacy fence. It's the grade of the property. It's going to follow the property line. So if it does slope down, depending on the grade, is how the fence will lay. It's not going to taper the picket size. That's not what's proposed.
So basically, they're asking for another 15 feet.
That is, yes, an encroachment of 15
Under
feet.
the rules, they can come out 13 feet from
Correct.
their house. They're asking for an additional
Correct.
15. Okay.
But, yeah, without a waiver, you see the 25-foot building line there on the drawing?
Right here.
Yeah.
Yes.
He could build it right there without even asking us a question. Okay, just to clarify.
I guess the concerns I have is that I really hate to see a fence right next to a sidewalk. That kind of concerns me. And
Well,
if you pulled it back a little bit closer to the house, maybe 3 to 5 feet,
This
It's
is,
going to be
this
10
is
feet
about
off the sidewalk.
10, 11-ish feet off the back of that sidewalk that's out there.
Okay.
It's going to be about 11, because that property line's off that sidewalk line a little bit, so 10, 11, maybe 12-ish,
okay.
so,
And
off
what-
the sidewalk.
What you've got going for you is that the neighbor's driveway is further away, and you're on a loop, so it isn't as bad. What I get concerned about in something like this, when we're gonna say, yes, you can make an exception in this case, is we're setting a precedent, and I wanna be real clear that there's a unique situation to justify a precedent. So the question of you all, by
Yeah.
me, is do you think this is exceptional enough to say yes?
Yeah,
The one question I have, I know there is a 10-foot utility easement, but sometimes when they put utilities, they might not stay within the line, and if it's going right at there, and if there is a utility, or in future, right now, they're putting fiber optics and stuff, how will that play into?
So anything, permanent structures cannot be located, they cannot be constructed on top of an easement. A fence is not considered a permanent structure. If they ever had to access that easement and the fence had to come down, that would be on the property owner, essentially to mitigate and replace.
part of his risk of putting it where he wants to put it.
Any other comments or questions? Is there a motion? Not from you.
Do we have to make a decision today, or?
Well, Shelby said.
Hate to
it's been-
kick this can down the
Kick
road.
this can down the road. It's been going for, it seems like 6 weeks now, based on what she just said.
Okay.
This is very similar to mine, but I will tell you, with the driveway being further away than my situation, and it being a loop street with very little traffic, I could see I don't know,
I will
I-
say,
I
if
can-
we're not comfortable with it this evening, he can always potentially get approval from his neighbor, and then we can revisit it in the future. That would be up to the commission.
I like
If
that idea.
that
If
is
he
the-
has something in writing from the neighbor, that way we don't have to go, if he approved today and then neighbor comes in and say, I didn't like the idea. I'm up for that if you get the neighbor's consent, no objecting, then.
I think you got two options here. One is you could make a motion to table it for a month and wait for a letter of approval or agreement from the neighbor.
concurrence.
Or-
Let's call it concurrence, not approval.
Okay. Or you could approve it on the condition that the staff gets such a letter. Your choice.
I make a motion that we approve the request, provided that the neighbor concurs with the request. And specifically, we're talking about the neighbor to his north.
It's a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, the motion is agree to allow it or approve it, subject to receiving a letter from the neighbor to the north concurring in that setting.
And is that to come back before commission
I
for a
would-
vote?
I would say no.
Okay,
If you get the letter, good
Okay.
enough. If you can't get a letter, then it isn't approved.
okay, just to clarify. Okay, thank you.
Jones?
Aye.
Hoskin? Aye. Patel?
Aye.
Middleton?
Aye.
Martin?
No.
Site plan at 401 West Maryland?
This item on the agenda, you will notice you did not receive any additional information or even any information from the first go-around in the packet, so the applicant has withdrawn the application. They will resubmit when they are ready in full.
So do you need anything to remove this from the agenda so it doesn't show up next month?
Please.
Okay. Motion to deny the site plan at 401 West Maryland.
I have a motion to deny the request. Call the roll.
Jones?
Aye.
Hoskin? Aye. Patel?
Aye.
Middleton?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
Amendment to the Sherwood zoning code regarding chapter 140209 amendments.
So you would have received amendments in the packet. Staff went through, and anything that was left redlined or in red, redlined is what we are planning to now take out, and with justification, or it's allowing options for y'all to decide this evening. Ms. Jones, there was one thing I wanted to bring up on page 5, where it's talking about the amendments to the application. It's talking about sought later than 10 days. I guess we can discuss if there's a better term to use than vote, but vote is with the intention that the item, the public hearing has already occurred, therefore it is on the agenda, and it will stay on the agenda until that item has the opportunity to be voted on, whichever way that would be.
Okay.
So I did not change that because I was like, we need to probably go into that a little further. Other than that, I'm open for any discussions.
I'm fine with that
Okay.
language as you explained it.
Yes,
so.
ma'am.
And when I saw the highlight, I remembered what we had talked about
Yes,
last
ma'am.
meeting. It's like, yeah, that makes sense.
Before we get started, because the council is meeting next Monday and the deadline for setting the agenda was today at noon, there was no way anything we do tonight could get on their agenda for this month. So basically, we've got another month before it needs to go forward. So tonight is essentially discussion and trying to come to some final conclusion about what we think this ought to look like. I guess my sense is that it would be good, since we're going to wait a month before we actually vote on anything, is to receive the final amended copy for us to look at in June, if everybody's okay with that. Okay. To go in kind of an organized fashion, are there any concerns or requests on items A or A, B, or C? There were no amendments or corrections or anything like that, but I have a chance if you had anything else, you could bring it up. Anything on D?
So on number 4, whenever we were discussing, sorry, I'm jumping in, we're at D, right? D.
Yeah, you're
Okay,
right.
well, I'm on D4. So with that, jumping in, we were talking about other means allowed by Arkansas law to advertise. So that language was already within, I believe it was the conditional use, and we wanted to carry it through the amendments. But then it was also brought up the state statute, which speaks to that. So I was allowing that to be an option. We pick which one we want to use for both of them, consistency moving forward. So that I will need a decision on that. Please.
Let me ask our city attorney, do
Yeah,
we need
so-
to vote on each of these changes? before we vote on the final?
I wouldn't think so.
have a consensus
Okay.
Yeah.
and then vote for on the final document.
Is it the sense of the commission to agree with that revision?
Well, it's an or, I
It's
think.
either
Which one are we,
or.
yeah, which one?
In your opinion, which way is the better way to state?
Which one are we talking?
Here.
D4 at the top
D4.
of page 2?
Sorry, I was checking.
No, you're fine.
Just checking his airline schedules.
Yeah. Hey. I'm gonna be late for California.
Rental car.
Where it says City of Sherwood means allowed by Arkansas law, and then, or would you prefer it to state the statute code
I think it would be
section?
better to specifically state the statute, then you know where to go read.
Okay.
Okay, all right, so
I
Good
agree
with
with
that.
I like that too, so just
The-
want to make sure you.
The issue is that, well, yeah, okay. Yeah, that statute, because the law that the municipal league has proposed in previous sessions did specifically amend that section, so it's yeah, never mind. The intent was, at some point, the Arkansas Press Association is not gonna have enough powder to kill, online notice, and that was the intent of that provision.
Yeah, so the final version of this will read, the City of Sherwood, or in accordance with the provisions of, we're basically going to remove
How about-
the first few words, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, just make,
And-
that goes
So
away.
the or, yeah, the
Or?
or would go out too. It
Or-
would just be in
Right.
accordance
How about the
with.
city of Sherwood in accordance with?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry if I spoke that wrong, I scratched it out with both ors inclusive.
You're forgiven.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on D? Okay, on E.
Well, I do, so in D, when we're down at D6, I think to the same point that James was making earlier, is that too granular of a paragraph to, where we're talking about required and public notice given in accordance with 140209.D.4? Do we need to take that up a couple levels to, in case as the law evolves over time?
No,
that's-
because
that's-
that's in the code, not the statute.
Yeah, that's the Sherwood Code section.
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry.
That's the Sherwood Code section. Reference.
Okay, on item E.
I can actually, so I made this amendment here. So when we were talking about changing the language that late applications would not be accepted, when we went through and we did the non-conforming, we cut that sentence off basically to where it was speaking at no application shall be accepted or processed without required materials and payments of fees. And we left it at that. And I think for consistency, we should probably do the same and just take out anything that's referenced. It already references the planning commission calendar. So open for discussion on that.
Fine with me?
I agree with that.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
all right. So we're gonna scratch that right there.
Little letter E, I'm sorry, it's over on page 3 at the top. This is throughout all of this, it says that the payment of the prescribed non-refundable is indicated in 4209G, which is the schedule, right?
Yes.
Isn't that the schedule? Yeah. Shall be set.
I think what we're going to do, and this was looked at, and I've had some conversations about anything that references fees, just cutting it off at the section that deals with fees, rather than continuously referencing how a schedule of fees is adopted by the city council, and I think we just leave it at that.
You're just gonna end,
I might have missed that whenever I was talking,
you
but
just wanna end that sentence after.
I think
G.
all of it
Yes.
moving
G
forward.
and period, okay.
And
I'd
that's
say-
been the consensus of
Yeah.
the conversations that I've had as well.
And there's 4 or 5 places where that shows up.
Yes.
And just end it at the reference.
Yeah, ended at the reference, okay.
And there's a couple of reasons for doing that. One is that I'm a firm believer in conservation of verbiage. And if, in fact, there is a schedule of fees adopted by the council at some point in time, we'd have to know to go back in those 4 or 5 different places to amend that out, rather than in the one place, which is item G. I agree.
Yeah, sounds good.
On item 2B5,
We talked about,
it's the same thing.
yeah. Scratch that last sentence like we just discussed.
I didn't have any other concerns throughout it except for just that verbiage that we had talked about.
Right.
before, so.
Okay.
Anything else on 2 or E? On item number 3, on the review procedure, the wording at the next regular meeting, let's scratch out next, at the regular meeting of the Planning Commission, that's pretty open-ended. Do we mean at the earliest meeting where we could legally provide notice, or at a future meeting, and leave it open-ended because the question coming back from the council could be difficult? It might take several months for staff or the consultant to come up with a response to whatever the council asks for. So I'm not really sure how to word that, except that at the regular meeting is kind of open-ended. I'm really like some better language.
Where it says before next, instead of the, it could be at a.
That would make sense. And the same thing on the last sentence,
Little c, the next.
shall be. Leave out the last sentence, but still leave the shall be made before a vote may be conducted by the Planning Commission. And at least in my copy, it said may be conducted, which it wrote may be conducted twice. And I would scratch the second one, so it would read shall be made before a vote may be conducted by the Planning Commission on the application. That's in 3B1. Oh, you took it out already?
I'm sorry,
You took it out already?
which one?
Yeah.
Where are you looking at?
What we got in our packet was, it read, conducted by the Planning Commission may be conducted.
Oh, mine's still reading that way.
The one that was at our sleep
Yeah.
tonight does not.
The second, may be conducted, needs to be taken out, it's mentioned
Yes.
twice.
Okay,
And I think it's reasonable to just take out that last whole sentence, the fee shall be set, the whole thing. Anything else on E? I would say the same thing holds true on 3B3, that instead of, get lost. Instead of the next regular meeting, it should be at a regular meeting.
Yeah, that shows up in,
Yeah, there's some more references that have the, where we struck through next, so I will go in and change all of that as well.
And in 3 above that, drop the fee is set unless the schedule and so forth. And on B3, where it says in the second sentence under denial, such written notice shall include the reasons of denial. I think it should be 4. I agree. And again, drop the fee is set. Any changes in F? On G, I would suggest, it's just a minor thing, changing the language from fee shall be determined by a fee schedule if no schedule. Fee shall be determined by a fee schedule adopted by the city council. If no fee schedule is adopted, that's what it reads now. Consider changing it to unless and until a fee schedule is adopted by the city council, fee shall be as follows. Just direct, short and sweet.
Yeah.
It's a minor thing.
Well, I mean, we would update this section of the zoning code as soon as they would adopt a fee schedule anyway. I almost would just like not say that at all, just say, here's the fees. But I don't know, I think we'd get pushback from the council on that.
I'm suspecting, that's just a suspicion, that the reason it's in there is as a constant reminder not to overlook that in case a schedule's been adopted.
Of course,
But otherwise, I'd agree with you.
yeah.
Yeah, the idea was eventually at some point, there's probably going to be a fee schedule passed, and we wouldn't want to have a situation where after the fee schedule's passed, somebody says, oh, when the fee schedule was passed, we didn't have a repealer on all this various language that has fees.
Yeah.
And so it was to help prevent that confusion in that situation, where you've got, a provision in the language that is no longer valid.
And this would be an issue every time somebody made an application. And I don't like repealers myself because that's just sort of a lazy way to say, it's your job to go find out what got repealed. And I just assume it be specific myself, but at least this is a reminder.
Well, yeah, and in any event, you're going to have a time period between when the city council would adopt a fee schedule and when this would be updated to refer them to that adopted fee schedule anyway. So with the language that you suggested, which I do like, by the way, that kind of covers that situation as well during the update process. So.
But the city council's going to approve this before it goes into effect. So they're, in essence, they are approving a fee schedule when they approve this. Why could it not just read, this is the schedule of fees? And if they want to change it, they can change it.
Normally, a fee schedule is a separate document that sets all the fees. So all the fees for rezoning applications, PUD applications, conditional use applications, site plan applications, basically a master list of all fees. That's why. It's not, this is not what you would consider a schedule of fees. A schedule of fees is pretty much all inclusive.
And it could include other things like subdivision regulations.
Yes, yeah. Or building permit regulations.
All of it, yeah.
Yeah, all of it.
All of it.
Anything else on amendments? It's looking good.
Thank you.
Next item.
All right. Amendment to the Sherwood zoning code regarding chapter 140210, conditional use permits.
So with this next item, a lot of the conversations, I would assume, are going to be the same. At least staff amendments reflect a lot of similarities as the amendments section. So we can start at the top and go down, if that's how we wish to proceed.
Yeah.
Okay?
On item A, I'm a little concerned about the word specifically. To me, that means that's the only thing that we have to worry about, in spite of the fact that it says, in conjunction with other provisions. Could we change the word specifically to particularly? So that it means, while that's the big one, there may be other things in there that have a bearing on a conditional use. I just don't want somebody, a really good attorney, to come in and say, well, you said it's only this.
I don't think staff has an issue with that.
Pardon?
Staff doesn't have an issue
No.
with that.
On, anybody else on A? On B, I have a concern about the phrase "may accompany a rezoning request." In my mind, a conditional use permit and a rezone are two very separate things, and if you put them together, you risk being labeled as a contract zoning, which is legal quicksand. I will leave it up to the city attorney to follow up on that one.
No, you're right.
The rationale behind that is not that they are necessarily the exact same thing. It, from a timeline standpoint, allowing concurrent review is, that's the,
I was going to say, the intent is so that they could be heard at a planning commission meeting in the same night.
I would
Because we have
agree,
done, we have done that in the
But
past.
not in the same place. Those are two separate public hearings. One's conditional use, the other is.
Oh,
a-
absolutely.
That's,
yeah, they're
that's
two
the way we've
separate
done it in the past, yeah, so
Yeah.
if
If
the
it goes-
rezone was first, we have passed that, and then we've
Yeah.
taken up the conditional use.
If it goes to the council as together, that they are in fact saying, we'll let you do this, but only if you do it on this condition, and then we'll let you rezone it, and we don't do that.
Yeah,
Right.
No, it.
No,
yeah,
that's not the
that's meant-
intent.
That's meant, it probably be better phrased, the application
maybe.
may be processed concurrently with a rezoning
Yeah,
request.
exactly.
That would take care of it. I just don't want them to be as one. I didn't quite understand the underlining on B.
So that didn't translate. When I saw y'all's digital copy, there was some random highlighting and underlining, and I can't tell you why. But what that is where, exactly like in the amendments, where it's talking about the applications which failed to be submitted within the bounds of the prescribed, blah, 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 taking that out. That is what it was supposed to be, a strike through,
Okay.
not an underline.
It's a strike through right there.
That may have been my fault at some point. It was.
That's just, that's
Making
just
sure
normal.
that was, it was really easy to find and emphasize that, you know, hey, you gotta have everything. We're not gonna take it late.
Deducting your fee by $1. And on B6, what we've discussed before.
Yes, and that will carry through the entire section.
On C, make sure that you haven't changed it.
Delete that.
On 2E, it's on page 2. No, that's not right. It's on C. On public notice. Public notice on C. No. I'm sorry, I'm getting confused my own self. Public notice 2E. Is there, this says, supplied by the city of Sherwood and the enforcement office. Should that be enforcement office or officer?
So whatever, I would say that enforcement office would suffice because that would be someone else internally within our department that would provide that list.
Do we have an enforcement office defined somewhere?
That's a trick question. I would have to look it up. We can change it to enforcement officer. All of that would be, we can keep it consistent. And that would save a definition if one didn't exist.
Okay.
So we'll add an R. I'm good with that.
And drop the last fee for the
Yes.
fee thing. Anything else on C? Agree with the owner notification list. I wonder about something, and this may be an administrative issue. Is it possible that the cost of a fee might be included in the application fee? Are there likely any circumstances where a request for a conditional use permit wouldn't have a sign?
Not that I would be privy to, because it would still have to have that posted notice.
I mean, it's okay if we have a separate fee for signs, but I just wonder if that just couldn't be included in the application fee if every one of them's gonna have a sign.
The number of signs might change depending on how big the piece of property is.
That would be the only thing
No,
that would be tallied based on the frontage.
Yeah, because there's a rule in there about minimum one per street or every 250 feet.
And
So
that's the
you-
same for rezoning.
Yeah.
makes sense.
Typically, the answer is one, but in the rare case, it might be multiple.
Leave it open in case. The only other thing I've got is use the same language in the schedule of fees that we just went for on amendment.
Okay.
Is there anything else?
And I will go through and I will make like changes throughout
there's
both,
some-
just that way they're consistent,
Yes.
regardless if they were spoken
Yeah.
into existence right now.
I think we're looking good.
Sounds like a plan. So we will, oh, the other one I do have a question on. If we go to F, we're talking about the expiration. There was quite some discussion last month that did not have a decision tied behind it. We had proposed the 18 months, and there was discussion that that was too long of a time frame, that they should be forever. So what was the consensus there? Leave it at 18 months?
Which one was this?
This is
yellow
in the,
highlight. Yeah, yes, yes,
yes,
yellow
F5, talking about
highlight on there.
expiration of the conditional use permit.
yes.
And then we'd also discuss potentially, if it had not been commenced within that approved month period, taking out that and maybe putting an or, making it an or rather than an and. But it was still pretty open when we last met.
That and definitely needs to be an or.
Pardon?
In that first sentence there, conditional use permit shall expire if the use is not commenced within 18 months of approval or if the use ceases for a consecutive period of greater than 18 months. It definitely needs to be an or.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But 18,
I think 18
18
is
is a fine.
overly sufficient,
Yeah,
yes.
I think so too.
And we do have a new conditional use permit dashboard that's on our website, so shout out to Cheryl. I want to give Cheryl a shout out every meeting. But there is a lot of confusion when Corey was pulling the ordinances related to conditional uses, and they're all rezonings for a specific use. My favorite was the dental office. So it has been confusing, so hopefully this clears all the confusion up moving forward.
Okay, and before I get scolded by the city attorney, this does call for reopening the public hearing.
Yes.
So I am reopening the public hearing. Does anybody out there wish to speak to this? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
No.
Is there any new business? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Jones.
Aye.
Hoskin. Patel.
Aye.
Clough. Middleton.
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
I thank you all. This has been a good session.
Right before 7 o'clock. Look at that.
Told you I had a deadline.